Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that feels really counterintuitive for a lot of people. It's forgiveness. But maybe not in the way you usually think about it. We're looking at it as, well, an act of self-preservation almost. I want to kick off with this image. It's always really struck me. You know the one, holding on to resentment, holding on to that anger. It's like drinking poison yourself but expecting the other person to die. It just perfectly frames this whole idea of self-inflicted harm, doesn't it? And that's something these ancient guys, the Stoics, they really explored.
Oh, absolutely. That metaphor, it really cuts right to the heart of it. It nails the destructive side of just letting anger fester. And what's
Hmm.
so interesting is how the Stoics got there, too. They saw the damage clear as day, but they approached it through logic, through reason,
Well,
not just pure emotion. It wasn't about being weak or passive. No, it was strategic,
yeah,
deeply personal.
exactly. So that's our focus today, digging into the Stoic case for forgiveness. And let's be super clear right up front. This isn't about saying what someone did was okay or wiping the slate clean for them. Not at all. It's about seeing forgiveness as a totally rational move for your own sake, protecting your own peace, your own mind.
Right. Our mission here is to really unpack how Stoicism flips the script. Forgiveness isn't this big favor you do for the offender. It's a gift you give yourself. The gift of tranquility, they'd say.
Right.
They saw it as this incredibly powerful tool, like a personal superpower. Yeah, lets you take back control of your inner world. And we'll be looking at the big names, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, to guide us. These guys lived it. Different life, sure, but they all zeroed in on this philosophy for living well, for resilience.
So if you've ever felt just stuck with that simmering anger, that feeling that just chews away at you, replaying some past wrong over and over, or if you've wondered, how do I actually move past this without just pretending it didn't hurt or denying the injustice?
Well, this deep dive is definitely for you. We're going to unpack some ancient ideas that feel incredibly relevant, almost startlingly modern, for just dealing with life today.
Totally. And the goal is practical takeaways. Stuff you can actually use to manage how you react when life throws curveballs or when people inevitably wrong you. We think you'll have from them real aha moments. It's kind of a shortcut to getting informed on something pretty vital, actually. These ancient thinkers basically developed a kind of therapy for the mind, a way of thinking that can genuinely shift your daily well-being, your sense of inner freedom. Okay, so let's dive right into the foundation, the absolute bedrock of Stoic thought. Epictetus now, he was a former slave, became this hugely influential teacher. He laid out this fundamental distinction. It underpins everything, really, the difference between what's up to us and what's not up to us. This isn't just some casual thought, it's the core of their idea of freedom. He argued our true self, what he called our volition or proheiresis. That's the only place we have real freedom, real control. This means our character, our judgments, our attitudes, our values, these things are ours, ours to command.
And what's so critical about this distinction, right, is how absolute they saw it. Epictetus didn't mince words. He said our essential selves are our volitions. So our attitudes, opinions, desires, aversions, these are completely unconditionally under our control. That's the zone of true freedom. Nothing can touch that. Everything else, external stuff, what other people do, even our own bodies sometimes that are, illness, aging, that all falls outside our direct command. So this immediately raises a huge question for us today. If our real freedom is only in how we choose to respond internally, how we assent to things, what does that mean for how we react when someone wrongs us? It really forces you to rethink where you put your energy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Epictetus, just to hammer this home, he said something incredibly powerful, especially when you think about his life, being enslaved, having his leg broken allegedly by his master. He said, "You can bind up my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice."
Hmm.
That's not just philosophy talk. He lived that. It shows so vividly that no matter how bad things get on the outside, they can't touch that inner core, our ability to choose our response. It's like the ultimate declaration of independence internally.
Right. And building right on that, the Stoics warned us again and again, don't identify yourself with external things, whether it's money, power, status, even relationships sometimes. If you tie your core self-worth to those things, you're setting yourself up for disappointment,
Oh,
for anxiety, for, well, emotional slavery. Why? Because those things are just fundamentally outside your control. They can change, they can be taken away, people can let you down. Rooting your happiness there, it's like building on quicksand.
so if our self-worth, our happiness, is all tangled up with things we can't control, what does that mean day to day? It makes us incredibly fragile,
Oh, yeah.
vulnerable to every little thing that goes wrong externally.
Yeah, like a boat getting tossed around by every wave instead of being the lighthouse, just steady through the storm.
Yeah.
And linking this back attachment to anything outside our volition, outside that core freedom of choice. The Stoics saw it as a certain recipe for disappointment, anxiety, and unhappiness. This is so crucial for understanding why holding on to resentment is just poison for yourself. Because resentment is an attachment, isn't it? It's an attachment to an external event, something someone else did, something you absolutely cannot control now because it's in the past. By clinging to it, replaying it, feeding it, you stay chained to that past event, and in a way you stay chained to the person who did it. You're letting them live rent-free in your head, disturbing your peace long after they've moved on. It's like giving away your own inner power.
And just take a second, maybe reflect on your own life, those times you felt really stuck, frustrated, unhappy. How often was that feeling tied to trying to control something or someone you just couldn't? Think about the sheer amount of energy we pour into that. It's exhausting.
Exactly. And this is where the Stoic idea of forgiveness starts to shift. It stops looking like some moral duty you owe the person who hurt you. It's not about letting them off easy or saying it was okay. No, it looks much more like a smart, strategic move, a redirection of your most valuable resource, your inner energy. It's a deeply rational way to protect your own mind, your own calm. It's actually powerful self-interest, but in the best, most virtuous way possible.
Right. So it's definitely not about condoning what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. Of course not. It's about seeing that, holding on to it, replaying it, fueling that anger that keeps you trapped, enslaved to something external, something finished. It's like willingly choosing to stay in that prison cell long after the door's been unlocked. It's self-sabotage, plain and simple.
So the act of letting go, then, is really about taking back the reins, reasserting control over your own mind, your judgments, how you respond. Like the Stoics would say, your mind, your inner world, that's your business, not the external world's chaos. It's like planting your flag back in your own territory, declaring independence from those external events, dictating how you feel inside. That reassertion of internal control, that is the superpower we're talking about. The strength to say, okay, that happened, it hurt, but it doesn't get to own my peace anymore.
Okay, now let's get into where this gets really, really interesting. The Stoic take on anger itself. Seneca, another giant of Stoicism, he didn't see anger as this inevitable force of nature. He argued very clearly that anger, like all emotions for the Stoics, comes from a judgment, something that happens in the mind. And because it starts with the judgment, it's something we can actually influence, something we can control. It's not just a wave that washes over us. It's tied to how we interpret things.
Which brings up a key question. How do emotions actually start, according to these guys? Seneca had this really nuanced idea. He talked about first movements. These are the immediate gut reactions, the physiological stuff, you're feeling startled, your heart jumps, maybe you blush or even tear up. These are automatic bodily things. Involuntary. And this is the crucial bit, Seneca says, these are not yet full-blown emotions. For these first movements to become real emotions, the mind has to step in and agree with the judgment, specifically the judgment that something terrible has happened, and then crucially decided to act on it. He even specifies, right? Fear involves flight, anger involves assault. That conscious judgment, that assent, is the trigger.
Ah, okay. So it's that second step, the judgment and agreeing with it, that really cooks up the emotion in the Stoic sense. So Seneca might say, imagine someone feels that flash of irritation, maybe even thinks about getting revenge for a second, but then they don't act on it. They take a breath, they control the impulse. Seneca would argue they aren't truly angry in the full Stoic meaning. Why? Because they stayed in control. They didn't fully sign off on the judgment that this terrible thing demands an angry, destructive response.
Exactly. The body might have reacted, but the damaging judgment didn't take hold and dictate action. It's a subtle difference, but massive for understanding self-control. And Seneca, he really doesn't pull any punches describing anger, does he? He calls it incredibly destructive, almost like a physical illness. He even says it's a disease of the body characterized by swelling. He lists the physical signs we all know. Heart racing, feeling hot, palpitations, sweating, maybe even shaking. These are real physical things that happen when anger takes over.
And what's so revealing is that physical toll he points out. He notes that once those symptoms kick and your heart's pounding, you're flushed. There's not much you can do right then to just switch them off instantly. You kind of just have to ride it out, wait for the physical storm to pass, which really highlights how anger harms us. It's a poison affecting our body, not just our mood. Seneca was absolutely clear. Acting out of calm reason, guided by, say, loyalty, duty, or justice, is always, always better than lashing out in revenge.
Yeah, he suggested if you need to confront wrongdoing, do it with courage, with justice, guided by reason, not fueled by that blinding, destructive fire of anger. If that short burst of anger is like an acute disease and holding on to it, letting it simmer into resentment, that's like having a chronic illness, isn't it? It's that poison metaphor again, but you're sipping it every single day, slowly eroding your peace, your energy, even your character. It's just insidious self-harm.
Which ties directly back to that core Stoic principle. Focus only on what you can control. Resentment, that's an internal state. It's a choice, conscious or not, to keep replaying a past hurt. And here's the kicker. It doesn't hurt the person who wronged you one bit. It only hurts the person holding on to it. You're stuck in a prison you built yourself, and it offers zero benefit.
Absolutely. And this resonates so strongly with more modern observations like Viktor Frankl's, in the absolute horror of the Nazi concentration camps. Frankl saw something incredible. He saw prisoners under the exact same inhuman conditions where some descended into behaving like animals, like swine, as he put it. But others, against all odds, acted like saints, showing unbelievable moral courage. His conclusion was stark. Character depends on our decisions, our internal choices, not just on the awful external conditions. It's a powerful testament to that inner volition that pro-Harris even in the absolute worst circumstances imaginable.
Frankl's work is such a powerful, real-world echo of the Stoic idea, isn't it? He believed, as you said, man has both potentialities within himself. Which one is actualized depends on decisions, but not on conditions. It completely backs up the Stoic focus on internal choice being supreme over external events. And it shows how clinging to those self-centered emotions, resentment, fear, can make us abandon our own values, harm ourselves and others, and ultimately make us less free. The choice somehow always remains.
And we see this play out in one of Epictetus' own teaching examples.
Mhm.
He talks about this Roman official who came to his school. Epictetus asks about his family, and the guy admits his daughter was terribly sick. So sick, he says, that he couldn't stand to be near her. He literally ran away because he couldn't handle his own feelings, his distress, his fear. Yeah. And Epictetus, being Epictetus, called him out, not just for being self-absorbed and, frankly, cowardly, but for completely failing in his role as a father, for abandoning love and duty when it mattered most. The guy tried to argue he fled because he loved her so much, but Epictetus shot that down. True love, Stoic love, would mean facing the difficulty with her.
Right.
It's such a sharp example of how getting lost in your own feelings, prioritizing your own comfort over responsibility, leads to abandoning duties and actually causing more harm. Both yourself and the people you supposedly care about. Our inner choices have real consequences.
Okay, so we've dissected anger, we've seen the heavy cost of resentment. The big question then becomes, how do we actually make the shift? How do we stop drinking that poison? And the Stoics, interestingly, they had methods that sound incredibly like modern therapy, centuries ahead of their time. Seneca, for example, he often acted like a mentor, right? Helping people like his friend Lucilius. He'd help them reframe situations, challenge their assumptions, basically deconstruct the false beliefs that cause mental suffering. That sounds a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy, doesn't it? Challenging those automatic negative thoughts.
It really does. Yeah. Remarkably so. Connecting that to the bigger Stoic picture, they fundamentally believe that unless you actively identify and dismantle these false beliefs, these irrational judgments, you simply can't live a happier, calmer, truly free life. It's impossible. So forgiveness, seen through this lens, becomes this deep internal reframing process. It's not about excusing the act. It's not about condoning the person. It's about disarming the power that event holds over your own peace of mind. It's about changing your relationship to what happened, changing its meaning for you, its grip on your thoughts, rather than trying to change the unchangeable past. That's where the liberation is.
And Seneca goes even further, doesn't he? In his essay on Providence, he makes this really bold claim that essentially nothing bad ever really happens to a truly virtuous person. Now, that sounds intense, but he doesn't mean denying pain or suffering. He means that external events themselves, they aren't inherently good or bad. They're just events. Indifferent.
Exactly. It's our judgment about the event that slaps the label good or bad onto it. So someone who really internalizes this idea, they won't jump to those instant emotional conclusions. They'll try to accept what happens without immediately judging it as terrible. And by doing that, they stop those initial first movements from snowballing into full-blown destructive emotions. It's a serious mental discipline.
But that does raise the obvious question, right? I mean, really painful things do happen. From our human viewpoint, they feel pretty bad.
Absolutely. And the Stoics had a powerful transformative answer for that. They encouraged us to view adversity, including being wronged, facing loss, dealing with difficulty, not as something to be avoided at all costs, but actually as a training exercise.
The wrestler analogy Seneca uses is so good here. Explain that.
Right. So Seneca says, look at a wrestler. Does a wrestler get stronger or more skilled by only fighting weak opponents? No way. They benefit hugely from tough opponents. Facing challenges is how they build skill, test their strength, refine their technique. It's essential for growth. In the same way, adversity in life, including the hurts we experience, the difficult people we deal with, it actually lets us display our virtues, and it trains them so that we can improve. It forces us to practice patience, courage, justice, wisdom. So, by seeing it this way, by consciously reframing hardship as a chance to build character, we can actually learn to, as Seneca says, happily welcome adversity.
Wow, happily welcome. That's a stretch for most of us.
It is. But it transforms external wrongs from victimizing events into, believe it or not, opportunities. Opportunities for inner growth.
And the ultimate goal for all this training, what were they aiming for?
The ultimate aim is eudaimonia. It's often translated as happiness, but it's deeper than that. It's more like flourishing, lasting well-being, profound mental tranquility.
Mm-hmm.
And they argued, quite radically, that this state comes only from inner excellence, from virtue, from your character. It does not come from external things like money, health, status, or even from people not wronging you. Those things are irrelevant to true eudaimonia.
That just flies in the face of how most of us think today, doesn't it? That external stuff is the key to happiness.
Completely. Now, the Stoics weren't fools. They called things like health and wealth preferred indifference, meaning, sure, all else being equal, it's better to have them than not, but they were adamant. These things will not improve your actual character or guarantee that deep inner peace. Seneca himself, famously wealthy, got accused of hypocrisy sometimes. But his point was, it's fine to use the gifts of fortune as long as you're not enslaved to them. And that applies just as much to needing external validation or demanding a life free from any slights. Your inner state shouldn't depend on those externals. It has to be built inside.
So here's a thought to really chew on. Could it be that the very things causing you pain right now, the challenges, the wrongs, could they actually be chances, opportunities to develop strength, resilience, virtues you didn't even know you possessed? Could they be those tough opponents making you stronger internally? It flips the script from victim to trainee.
Exactly. It reclaims your agency.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads to another common question. Does all this mean Stoics just become emotionless robots? That stiff upper lip image, just bottling everything up.
Yeah, the classic Stoic stereotype, just feeling nothing.
Right. And that's such a misunderstanding. What's truly amazing is that the Stoics actually had this profound understanding of how emotions arise and how we can not just repress them superficially, but fundamentally transform them.
Mm.
It's not about being numb or denying those initial physical jolts, the first movement Seneca talked about. We feel those. The discipline is about stopping those jolts from becoming destructive passions by not agreeing with the faulty judgment that fuels them. So the Stoic way isn't about striking a fearless pose while shivering in your shoes, as one scholar put it. It's not cosmetic concealment. They were after genuine inner change, reshaping how you relate to your own thoughts and feelings, not just putting on a brave face.
That's a critical distinction, transforming, not just suppressing. And it's interesting how that contrasts with social expectations sometimes. Adam Smith, the economist, but also a moral philosopher, he pointed out that society often expects resentment, demands revenge for insults. He even said that just passively accepting a slight was often seen as mean-spirited. There's pressure to get angry.
True. But Smith also, in his theory of moral sentiments, admired the heroic magnanimity of figures like Socrates, famously facing death with, as Smith described it, the gayest and most cheerful tranquility. Now that, for the Stoics, and for Smith too, showed a higher level of self-mastery, a genuinely transformed inner state that goes way beyond basic reactive impulses. Socrates kind of embodied the ideal, showing that inner peace and virtue could hold steady even facing the ultimate injustice. It proves the power of that internal choice.
Okay, so we've got the deep philosophy down, but the million-dollar question is, how do we actually do this? How do we bring these ideas into our messy, everyday lives? One core Stoic technique is called the discipline of assent. Basically, it means consciously hitting pause, evaluating those first impressions, those gut reactions, before you sign off on them with your judgment.
Yeah, creating that crucial space between stimulus and response. This is exactly where we learn to stop being so impulsive, right? Seneca put it brilliantly. A consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step to salvation. You have to catch yourself doing it before you can correct it. That pause is everything. It lets you deliberately look at what's making you angry, the situation, the person, the thought, and then critically examine the thoughts leading to the anger. And then you actively challenge them. You rebut them with reason. Are they true? Are they helpful? Are they rational? You interrogate those automatic judgments before they hijack you. It's an ongoing mental workout.
And there are practical exercises for this. The Handbook for New Stoics, for example, it lays out ways to counter negative moods, weaken those attachments to external things. They even suggested stuff like voluntary discomfort for more advanced practitioners.
Right, not about self-punishment. It could be simple things like occasionally choosing to experience minor discomfort. Maybe skipping a meal you don't need, taking a cold shower, deliberately doing something slightly inconvenient.
Why, though? What's the point?
The point is building resilience. It's proving to yourself in a very real way that your fundamental peace of mind doesn't depend on constant comfort or things always going your way. Seneca did this himself, even though he was rich. He wanted to know, viscerally, that his inner calm wasn't tied to his bank account. It builds inner strength, inner robustness.
Epictetus gives us another really helpful image, doesn't he? The actor in a play.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful one. He says, think of your life like you're an actor in a big drama. You didn't write the script. You didn't choose your role. Maybe you're the star. Maybe you have one line. You don't control the plot twists. You don't control the other actors, and you certainly don't control when the play ends.
So if all that's outside our control,
Yeah.
what is our job as the actor?
Epictetus says, your task isn't to fight the script or complain about your role or try to control the things you can't know. Your task is to play the role you find yourself in as best as you can, with virtue. With excellence, it means accepting the external events, the plot twists, the difficult scenes, even the perceived wrongs, and focusing 100% on how you play your part, your character, your actions, your responses.
Marcus Aurelius was constantly reminding himself of this too, wasn't he, in his meditations?
Constantly. Things like nature's always changing, nothing stays the same, reminding himself to accept what he couldn't control and pour all his energy into his own judgments and actions, the only things truly his.
And Epictetus also talked about this idea of a god within, right, or daemon. What did he mean by that?
Yeah, he described it as the voice of correct reason, something available to everyone. It's essentially equivalent to God or universal reason, or the logos in Stoic terms. Now, sometimes people hear surrendering to Zeus, the Stoic shorthand for aligning with this reason or fate, and think it means being passive, just giving up.
But it's not passive resignation at all, is it?
Not in the slightest. It's actually a very active mental stance. Surrendering to Zeus is a metaphor for cultivating a mindset that makes the best possible use of whatever actually happens. It's about responding wisely and virtuously to reality as it is, instead of wasting energy wishing things were different, which just breeds frustration and disappointment. This active alignment with how things are with reason, that's the bedrock for emotional health, for that deep tranquility they sought. It's finding meaning, even in the tough stuff.
It really is striking how modern these ancient ideas feel when you dig into them. You mentioned Viktor Frankl earlier, his logotherapy focusing on meaning.
Exactly. Frankl, coming from his own horrific experiences in the camps, independently reached such similar conclusions. It's incredible.
And his concept of freedom of the will seems key here.
Absolutely central. Frankl saw that even when people are crushed by biological, psychological, social forces, and you can't imagine more crushing forces than the camps, they still retain a fundamental freedom. The freedom to stand against these conditions, even if only through an attitude chosen. He saw it plain as day. Same horrific situation, yet some prisoners acted like swine, others like saints. His conclusion was undeniable. Man has both potentialities within himself. Which one is actualized depends on decisions, but not on conditions. Wow. It's just such powerful real-world evidence supporting the Stoic emphasis on our inner choice, our prohairesis, being more powerful than any external circumstance. And it shows how finding meaning, choosing your attitude, can unlock unbelievable levels of resilience, even when everything seems lost. It's modern psychology confirming ancient wisdom.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Stoic forgiveness, what really stands out is how it shifts the whole conversation, doesn't it? It's not some soft, magnanimous favor you do for someone else. It's not about letting people off the hook. It's presented as this profoundly rational, intensely personal act of self-care. It's about reclaiming control of your inner world. It's about transforming that poison of anger and resentment into fuel for growth, for building unshakable inner strength.
Yeah, the absolute core takeaway has to be the power, the untapped potential of your own volition. Your fundamental ability to choose how you respond to anything life throws at you, no matter how unfair, how painful. By consciously focusing your energy on what's truly up to you, your judgments, your attitudes, your intentions, your character, you can cultivate an inner calm, a tranquility that external events just can't touch. And remember, this isn't about bottling things up or pretending you don't feel. It's a deep, active transformation of your whole emotional landscape. It's about building resilience from the inside out. It's choosing to be free.
So here's something to really mull over this week. If the real path to healing our own lives involves freeing ourselves from feels, desires, and attachments that are either unnecessary or just fundamentally beyond our control, then maybe, just maybe, the act of letting go of resentment is the single most powerful, most selfish in the best possible sense, and ultimately the most virtuous thing you could possibly do for yourself.
It brings to mind that quote from Epictetus we touched on. Every individual can make himself happy, for he has always made the effort to rely as much as possible on himself and to derive all delight from within himself. It all comes back to that inner source.
What if the ultimate act of courage isn't facing down your enemy or fighting for external justice? What if the greatest courage lies in liberating yourself from the prison of your own anger? What if forgiveness is the ultimate victory for yourself? Something to think about.